All right, today we are taking a seriously deep dive into one of the most terrifying documents you can possibly imagine, a diabolical contract. We're going to break this thing down term by term, clause by clause, and look at the horrifying fine print that binds a soul to eternal darkness. I mean, really, what are the terms and conditions when you're making a deal with, say, a Prince of the Void? What are you actually signing up for? And probably more important, what are you signing away forever? And we're not just going to skim this. We are going to treat this supernatural document, the Chirographum of the Nesuferatul, which is a pretty dark name in itself, as if it were a binding legal instrument. We're going to look at the parties involved, the promises made, the ultimate price, and of course, the loopholes. This line, right from the document itself, just sets the tone perfectly, doesn't it? This isn't some simple signature on a piece of paper. Nope. This is a pact, sealed with lifeblood, and that makes the stakes incredibly, terrifyingly clear right from the start. So, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The document is officially called the Chirographum of the Nesuferatul, which basically means the instruments of binding. The name alone tells you this is all about creating an unbreakable, authenticated bond. And what's so fascinating is the use of that word chirographum. This is a real historical term. It was for a medieval contract where each person would get a matching, torn half of the document to prove it was legit. It's a way of grounding this totally supernatural pact in a very real, very established legal tradition. And just like any contract, you've got two parties at the table. On one side, we have the grantor, Belial, who is identified as the Prince of the Void. He's the one with all the power here. And on the other side, we have the petitioner, who's just called the seeker, some mortal who willingly went looking for this dark bargain. Okay, let's move on to Article 1. This part of the contract spells out the fundamental change that's at the very heart of this deal, a total, irreversible transformation of the seeker's entire being.
First things first, a new identity. The seeker is gone. They no longer exist. They are now the Nesuferatul, which translates pretty ominously to the insufferable one. And this isn't just a fancy new title, it's a complete rewrite of their soul and their very existence.
The physical change is just as dramatic. The contract gets specific, describing the new form as a gaunt specter of the Carpathians. This immediately ties this new creature to the heart of vampire mythology. So you're not just becoming a monster, you're becoming a very specific, legendary kind of monster. And finally, there's their new status in the world. They're free from mortal problems like getting old or sick, but it comes at a huge cost. They are forever divorced from the grace of the sun. This is the central trade-off in a nutshell. You get this kind of earthly immortality, but you're completely cut off from the natural living world. So what kind of powers do you get with this new form? Well, Article 2 lays out what the Nesuferatul can actually do. This is the benefits package, so to speak, and it's all about decay, corruption, and control. So the Seeker gets this grand title of King Vampire, but their kingdom is a corrupted version of the natural world. They get to command beasts and swarms, and they can even turn the very air people breathe into a stagnant mist. They don't become a ruler of people, but a master of things that signal death and decay, a true harbinger of the grave. And now, we get to the heart of any diabolical deal, the price. Article 3 is short, it's blunt, and it is absolute. It spells out exactly what the seeker has to give up to get all this power. You know, the crucial thing here is that this isn't just a passive loss. It's an active, step-by-step renunciation. The seeker has to perform these specific spiritual acts of denial, culminating in that final binding acknowledgement. My soul is no longer my own. This quote from Belial, right inside the contract, is absolutely bone-chilling. It reframes the soul not as something that was taken, but as something that was always insignificant, just a mere shadow that depends entirely on a greater, darker power. The ownership is total. But here is where the fine print gets truly terrifying. This so-called immortality, it doesn't last forever. Article 4 and a final stipulation lay out the terms for the end of the contract, and let me tell you, it is bleak.
Just look at that term duration, 24 years or 24 centuries. The ambiguity itself is a form of torment. It's a psychological weapon built right into the contract. And no matter how long it lasts, the end is exactly the same. The body crumbles into dust, and the spirit is dragged off to the abyss for eternal servitude, a place described only as empty space filled with endless cries.
But wait, there's one more piece of fine print, a final, critical stipulation that's basically a kill switch for the entire agreement. I'm calling it the Dawn Clause. It's simple. It's brutal. If the Nesufaridal is ever hit by the direct rays of the sun, the contract is considered instantly fulfilled. The term of years or centuries, gone. The soul is forfeited on the spot, with absolutely no chance for appeal. It's the ultimate fatal loophole, a constant daily threat woven into the very fabric of the deal. So, how was this grim contract made official? Well, the document itself calls it an unclean legal instrument. It was signed not with ink, but with the petitioner's own blood in the land beyond the forest, cementing its connection to the dark folklore of Transylvania. So, after breaking it all down, we're left with this one last question. When you really look at the dominion you're granted versus the spiritual price and all the horrifying fine print, you just have to wonder, is any amount of power, any escape from mortal life, really worth signing on that dotted line?